How are you doing?
Pretty good, and you?
I'm doing better than I deserve. Got some back pain, picking up kids and throwing them around on the trampoline and, doing all that stuff. And I'm just destroyed. I'm just, but no, I'm doing really well. Better than I deserve for sure. How are you? How are things going over there?
Pretty good. I'm in kind of the same boat. My wife has signed me up for a personal training type deal. So pretty much every Saturday we do that, and then I am sore for Sunday until Tuesday, I guess.
Wait. Like what kind of person? Like
There's
physical fitness type stuff?
yeah, but there's a One Life Fitness place around the corner, and so we go and do like their group fitness things there. Just want to do it as a couple of type deal. So it's fun bonding, but like it does kind of rush me for the next couple of days as I'm like struggling to walk around.
Nice. Yeah. I probably need to do something like that. I'm so out of shape, and my I keep mentioning this on some of these episodes, but we're about to have two more. So we already have three, and we're about to have two more. So I can't be throwing my back out now. Not now.
Yeah, you got a long way to go.
Yeah, it's a lot to handle. No, Andrew, how do you say your last name? Lally? Lally. It's super nice to finally have you on. I know that you guys are incredibly busy. I know that I've talked to a couple people over at KTL, and you guys are just swamped, just like everyone else, right? Like CMMC world is clown world. It's crazy world is busy. So I'm super glad that you were, and I appreciate that you guys were able to take some time and meet with me.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's definitely busy. Everyone trying to rush to get certifications, beat their competitors, and just make sure they've got everything in order.
Yeah, it seems like everything that was being predicted and warned about is kind of coming to pass, isn't it? Well, yeah, I wanted to have you on, and I wanted to, because you're one of the key members over there at KTL Solutions. We'll talk about a little bit, just learn about what you guys do and everything. But figured that you're probably one of the people interface with and come into contact with at some point when they work with you guys. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to let people get to know you a little bit, let people get to know KTL a little bit more, how you guys stand out and what you guys focus on, and then so if you don't mind, just to kind of jump right into it, I would love for you people to kind of get familiar with who you are. Always love asking the guests, just to take me as far back as you want to, as far back as you're comfortable with, dive in and spend as long as you want talking about who you are and where you come from, how you grew up, the things that made you the man that you are today, that helps the people that you do today. And if you don't mind sharing that, I'd love to hear it.
All right. Yeah, so I won't go too far back. I'll try to keep it to what's actually pertinent.
Born, expiration, you're not expiration date, birth date, social.
I was the third child, and then I really started going. No, I mean, so if anybody looks at like the KTL's website and kind of look at who is on there, they'll kind of see that the president CEO has the same last name, the CFO has the same last name. So those are my parents. And Tim, the owner, my dad, he's had a company that focused on IT, ERP things pretty much my entire life. And so around in the middle school, high school is when I really got involved in kind of IT related things. And so as a younger kid, I was that person that was kind of downloading different Linux versions and messing with them, trying to set up little web servers and playing with little electronics and Arduino boards and all sorts of stuff like that. And then in high school, we had at the Thomas Johnson High School here in Frederick, Maryland, where I grew up, there was a Career and Technology Center program, which is essentially high schoolers got the option for like half a day to go to what essentially vocational school. And in there, they had two programs. One was like a CompTIA one, and the other one was a Cisco specific one. And so through high school, I was doing standard high school work and then half day going there to learn about pretty much all things IT. And so that led to some interesting situations because kind of my senior year, sort of before I could drive, I had a CCNA certification, so I could put that on resumes. And so I was applying for jobs as soon as I could. I recall going to one interview, kind of looking like a normal high schooler that doesn't take things all that serious. And my mother had to drive me, and I could kind of tell that when I got there, like the resume, what they probably expected was not the child that walked in the door. So I've been doing IT things for a pretty long time, kind of all over the place. And then when I graduated high school, I went to college at the University of Maryland. That was mainly focused on computer science. So I left there with a computer science degree, which from a IT perspective kind of gave me some more in-depth knowledge of kind of what I was looking at and what I was doing. Because some of the things we went into was kind of like machine learning, vision, protocol level things, which from a troubleshooting standpoint helps a lot. Like when you're looking through log files, other people's stuff, to be able to
Right.
understand like what that even means, to figure out
Yeah.
what a potential issue is. So that was a lot of fun. After that, I did software development for a while at KTL. And then as KTL grew and things kind of went on, kind of shifted to IT, which I had a background in and was doing at KTL as well. And then that has just kind of slow and steadily grew and become more of a thing as we've gotten kind of more involved in all of the IT related things for kind of Microsoft specific. And so the things we do there isn't just for defense contractors. We have a sizable commercial practice that does a lot of things across
Yeah.
pretty much all Microsoft products, which kind of lends itself into kind of what KTL does. Started kind of as an ERP implementation support for like Dynamics GP as kind of the Microsoft ecosystem grew, Dynamics CRM when they kind of acquired that. So then we started implementing CRM and helping people. And then shortly, the early 2010 time period, as Office 365, everything else started to take off, we started supporting that, became kind of a CSP there, grew out the practice on that part in 2017-ish. Microsoft kind of created the AOSG program
Right.
specifically for like the sub 500 number customers, and then we can sell more than 500. So we got adopted into that and have been assisting customers kind of in that space as well. Prior to CMMC, it was, I think, a little harder to get people to like understand they should be in that cloud. But now that that has been kind of more forefront, people kind of come in expecting that they probably shouldn't be in the commercial cloud or something like that. They need to make a move or at least segment their data. And so it's a little easier to explain to people like why this cloud exists or why different vendors have separate clouds and what that means for them.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the recent change to KTL, which kind of was a natural progression at all. We're supporting customers as part of training and showing people that we know what we're doing. We have CCAs and lead CCAs on staff. We have got a CMMC level 2 certification. And so that just kind of transpired into might as well kind of offer assessments to customers that we don't do actual consulting with. And so if there are organizations that kind of need an assessment, but they don't do anything else with KTL, we have a CCA or a team of CCAs that can do those certifications. And we are a C3PO on like the Cyber AV's kind of marketplace. So we kind of do all sorts of everything from Dynamics BC, CRM, Office 365 implementations. We do on-premise support for things. I like to joke with people that like if you started with zero, we could pretty much set you up as a whole company to run from finances, inventory to your actual business applications. And then the part I started at KTL was the custom development. So there is a .NET development team that works out of our Frederick, Maryland office that does pretty much anything possible with .NET, be it custom things in Azure, custom desktop apps, modifications, integrations with some of the Microsoft software. And they do a lot of support for customers with like ERP systems and data integrations and pretty much anything they can think of to make their jobs more efficient and easier.
That's a lot more than I actually thought you guys did, to be honest with you.
It's a struggle at times, and the president has been pushing that for a while, that it gets on his nerves that he'll talk to a customer and they have no idea that we've got all these other things we can help with.
Yeah.
And they're bringing in potentially other competitors from us to help them with something, and we could have helped them. And we support those applications in all the clouds. And
And you
just
just
kind
have
of getting
they
that
just
out
have
there.
one bill to pay, because
Yeah.
they're coming to you for everything. Why? Like
Well,
why?
and I mean, it makes it easier as well. It's like some customers use for managed services, and then there's no finger pointing. Like your ERP system's messed up. Our ERP team's not going to blame us for IT side. Like we're the problem. We're going to fix it type deal. And we're not getting on meetings, kind of looking at each other saying it's your fault type deal. It's just going to get fixed.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a struggle. We do a whole lot when we talk to people in the defense space. They seem to be pretty aware of just that we do GCC High and compliance support, and that is what I would say is a part of our business, but it is not everything
Not all
KTL
of it.
does to support people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess just to back up just a little bit, and I want to come back to this. When you were in high school and you were developing for the role that you have at KTL now, was security part of a lot of that? You mentioned that you did a lot of IT stuff, but where did security come into the mix for you?
I mean, there was some, I would say, focus on security. So some of the things in there, I think when I was younger, it was called Backtrack, was like that Linux variant that you use to kind of mess with things. And so when I was younger, I would be in the house kind of screwing with the Wi-Fi and everything else as a kid
Messing
would
with
do,
stuff.
and then break something and someone complained the internet doesn't work. So it was around then. I don't think I had the full appreciation of like what can go wrong if you don't take security serious, because I didn't have like a child where I'm like that many risks to myself.
Mm.
But it was probably more as I kind of left college and saw more like what is at stake. If a company does a lot of revenue, if you kind of screw something up and there's any downtime or some other issue like that, is a lot of potentially lost revenue.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger appreciation that was doing software development, because a lot of that was for manufacturing ERP, and these were for customers that had 24/7 operations. And so even something as simple as a software update was a big deal because they can't be down for too long without now messing up their manufacturing lines and some things kind of going haywire. So the kind of process of those kind of grew out of just necessity of, I guess, how anybody else does it. As you get more experience and actually see the real world, you kind of get better grasp of why this stuff is important.
So did your relationship with obviously your parents being higher ups at KTL, did that help shepherd you towards the roles that you wanted to be in at KTL, or did you get to kind of play around with different roles? Like, because I looked at your LinkedIn and I saw several different like positions that you had over the years that you've been there. I mean, what did you find to be the most fulfilling, and did your parents influence that, or like was that kind of self-defined?
I don't think they really influence it. I'm one of four, and only one of us actually work at KTL. The others have jobs at different kind of areas and companies.
Yeah.
So they really didn't force anybody to work there. I think I just took a kind of interest in technology, and that's what KTL does. So it
Right.
was easy enough to get a job at KTL. But when I started, I did interviews with the person at the time that was the development manager. Started kind of as a junior developer, as would be accurate. They shouldn't trust some kid out of college to just jump right in and start doing development. So I was reviewed and everything else and made
Yeah.
sure I actually knew what I was doing. But from there, it just became kind of like what interests me. There was no like IT department that exists today. When I first started, it was primarily Dynamics CRM, which is now Dynamics 5, Dynamics GP, and a software development, and then some other kind of functionality there for consulting. And then as kind of the landscape changed, we introduced the IT services, and then having an IT background with things outside of just software development started that piece. And as business grew, the department grew, and things just kind of keep steamrolling. And as we're kind of doing now, we're kind of continuously adding people as we kind of get customers and the revenue to justify it and the need.
Well, so you said you kind of started the IT services, or you were one of the core members of that MSP white glove IT relationship with customers. But so is that right? Like you were there at the beginning?
For the IT stuff, yeah. So I started working. I graduated college in 2014. Around that time, with Microsoft 365 pieces were starting to come more into kind of mainstream things. I think it had a different name back then. And then I started doing kind of migrating people. At that time, most of our customers had Exchange on-prem. And so it started with getting hybrid set up, migrating people into Exchange Online that didn't want to have on-prem servers anymore, migrating people from G Suite. And then as that all grew and Microsoft's capabilities started kind of getting more and more into and became a product that was kind of worthwhile to use. Originally, it was a little rough around the edges. Now it's, I would say, pretty good and kind of a go-to solution. But that has matured greatly from its first kind of iteration.
Yeah.
And as the M365 ecosystem and those things have grown, so has our practice around it to support customers, because new features are popping up, the newest Copilot and that type of stuff. If we don't know anything about it or have people that can support it, the customers kind of don't know always kind of how to use it or how they can benefit from it, or have questions on how to even secure it, because that's a big problem of what accesses have and what can people actually pull from our environment. So we've got to stay a step ahead and kind of keep growing. And my job is to make sure that our IT teams and everything have those capabilities and can keep them moving. But at the start, it was kind of just me doing most of the IT specific things for customers.
So it sounds like it was more like IT project work, like migrations and things like that. What at the beginning, was there like ongoing, like, I am your managed service provider, call me if you need something, or I expect me to come in first Monday of every month to check on things and run update? Like, did you have that type of ongoing relationship, or was this more of like a project thing only?
Kind of both. Given our like position that we were doing with the ERP systems, we had a lot of customers that were rather large. So a lot of it was kind of working with them to augment their staff and helping with the
Yeah.
cloud pieces. And then from there, it kind of grew into more pieces as our customers got rid of more and more things. And they got more into the cloud, and we could support their actual cloud infrastructure and augment their whole staff and everybody else in the IT team, and they could focus on their kind of core mission. But we've always had kind of some flavor of a managed service aspect of it.
Gotcha.
What we found is like the ERP systems themselves, especially Dynamics GP, if you're not familiar with it, the normal deployment of that is a RDS farm for most customers, because you've got to have the thick client running in the same LAN as your SQL Server. So that is a relatively complicated setup for some systems, and then SQL Server. So we usually had managed services around those core components to make sure your ERP system is up and running and working like it's supposed to, and monitoring it and kind of integrating with internal IT staff on those respects.
Yeah, you can't just expect somebody to set up this complicated, network intensive, plus also like server and client intensive, and then not be there to maintain it. So I guess that makes sense. So you guys from the beginning were learning how to be a good ongoing MSP far before it was like KTL was known to be an MSP kind of thing.
Yep.
You guys are getting that experience. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think I just kind of the IT side expanded it to kind of a more broader sense of like, great, you don't have an ERP system that we support, but like all the other systems we can support and work with you with.
Yeah. When you were kind of before you started the IT stuff, did KTL ever have any like government contracts? Like, were you familiar with government contracting in any sense because of like, the consulting aspect of what you guys did?
We had, I think people were bidding on certain things, but it wasn't like anybody was going for DoD work. It would be more of like ERP implementations for municipalities or other
Like
potential.
states.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So what was the, I guess, what was the first thing for when DFARS 7012, we have 2017, we have customers and people needing help implementing that and setting up the new environments, and GCC High, like the things that you were talking about. What was kind of like the first place that you started, first time that you guys started to see, we might need to consider, learning how to support this regulatory situation here? with DFARS 7012 and then ultimately CMMC. What was the beginning of that?
I want to say it was probably around the 2016-ish time frame. So I mean, our location in Maryland, we're a stone's throw away from kind of a bunch of defense contractors. We're about an hour without traffic to DC,
Right.
or an hour from kind of like the Reston, Nova area. If you're familiar with kind of Virginia,
Yeah.
we're not too far from pretty much a couple other cities in Maryland where there would be a lot of defense contractors. So a lot of our customers in general have work they do with the federal government in some capacity, which like even now is still kind of a surprising thing that pops up every once in a while, because we'll have a customer that we had no idea they did anything. Like one customer we have reached out to us a couple months ago because they got a notice that they had to have a score on SPRS. And up until that point, they thought they were just selling COTS stuff. And so they were exempted. But a memo, according to the contract officer, went out saying if there's any services whatsoever, that it could no longer be COTS. And so their services was just like maintenance on these machines. And so they would have no reason to go and have CUI. They don't take it from them. They just go on site, do the calibrations, and then leave. And these are general things. The same machine would be sold to a university or any other
Right.
scientific
commercial
person that wants to buy them. And so it's expanding outside of even our customer base, that we kind of could pinpoint that you 100% are going to need this, and we have to sit down with them and figure out, like, do you move stuff? Do you just stop doing government work, or do you kind of figure out how you segment out whatever you do with them?
What ended up happening with that client? Because that is an interesting. I mean, that's part of what we're constantly having to talk to people through and talk with people and help them consider and think about. Okay, your customer does have a an obligation to make sure that anybody that's accessing their system is authorized, and or if they're not authorized, they need to be supervised. Like there's a lot of like their customers are going to have to have obligations too, right? So what did you guys end up advising for them?
Pretty much the same thing we advise everybody else. I mean, figure out where your CUI is, which they said they shouldn't have any, which is great, but there's a risk there because they have a ticketing system to do customer service if someone has an issue with the machine. So maybe someone sends it. You would think the government side that they're working with wouldn't send them CUI. They would just put a ticket in and say what's wrong and say someone needs to come out. But who knows? But we went down that path with them because the same tools that we work with them and support inside of the commercial cloud, which is the Dynamics 365 field service and things like that, it's available in the Gov cloud. So they could have easily done that. But when you're talking about a large corporation, replicating those enterprise systems into another cloud is not a small feat. What ultimately ended up happening, because they were not focused on 171, they didn't really have documentation for it. They weren't meeting some of the controls for 171 because in their mind, and up until that day, the government agreed with them that it was all COTS and none of their contracts said anything about it. So they went back and forth with the contracting officer, and it ended up being like, great, you still win, but you have to put a score in there and you have to kind of work on it and keep me updated as that score goes up, which to me is kind of wild. Did nobody else bid on that contract? Is kind of, was it not actually necessary? But as we did our negotiations there, the contract officer didn't know what CUI would potentially be there, or what CUI they could come in contact, or if any CUI was involved at all. So they're just kind of being blindsided kind of by that update from the contract officer for things that they've been bidding on all along.
Yeah, I wonder if in that situation, the contracting officer, whoever is, was involved, whether it's a prime or the contracting officer, was just anticipating that even task orders that might have certain details about the facilities where the maintenance would need to occur or something like that would just have the potential of one day being marked as CUI and flowing down to them. I wonder if it's just a laziness thing. Honestly.
I mean, it's possible. The way it was explained to us by them was that a memo went out regarding people miscategorizing and misunderstanding the full definition of COTS.
Right.
And
what
so
I was going to also say. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like if they just see any services along with that kind of order, that they immediately throw in those clauses and require that, regardless of if there will be CUI involved with it, which is kind of a big burden if no one is expecting to actually have any CY go back and forth.
Yeah, and if for the last however many years that they've been doing that work, people even on the government side have had the same maybe misunderstanding about COTS applicability there. That's a really good point, because I'm sure it's not totally out of the. I'm sure it's not rare. I'll put it like that. I'm sure it's not rare that customers. I mean, maybe you've seen this before, but customers that are thinking that they're in the clear and won't have CMMC requirements show up on their doorstep have actually just been, the people that they've been working with on the government side have also been misinformed. So it's just a breeding ground of misinformation. And now that like we're in the phase 1 and phase 2 is coming out, and contracting officers are starting to be required to slap DFARS 7021 and 7025 on these contracts and stuff like that, then you know what, I wonder if it's going to be a more and more, hey, customers who thought they would never have to deal with CMMC. We talk to people all the time who know that this is coming, right? We talk to people all the time that they've known. Whether they've started preparing for it or not is a different question, but they've known. But I bet you it's not going to be a rare occasion for people who actually had considered it and were told either by somebody official that they weren't going to have to deal with it, and now they do, because that sounds like what is happening.
Yeah, I would think it's going to happen more.
Yeah,
I mean, unless you're running just an e-commerce site that they can go and buy something with a credit card or whatever they want to do, and you ship it, and that's the end of it. I would assume that same memo that caused our customers some grief is equally showing up for other people. That one was specifically kind of someone with a Navy email address, so I don't know if it was isolated to just on the Navy side or everybody, but I would think this would start impacting a little more broader. And we do have other customers, and we went through kind of our CRM to try to figure out which customers could potentially be impacted by this, because we have those that sell other like business machines essentially to the government and various agencies that require scheduled maintenance, and that's usually a part of what they're bidding on. And so it's definitely going to pop up more, and we try to keep the rest of our customers informed of like, hey, we've seen this happen. Are you aware? Are you getting documents and just kind of signing them and not aware of what they are and what they are saying of you, and kind of how they work through that?
Yeah, I talked to somebody else here recently on the podcast, and that's one thing they said is like, when you have so many DFARS clauses on these contracts, right, on these RFPs, it still is your responsibility to read them and not not attest to doing something that you're not supposed to, and especially now that you're going to have to prove that you are meeting the requirements with the status and SPRS and whatnot. But yeah, when you have so many, it's kind of not surprising that people haven't read and understood all the requirements and have gotten themselves in a little bit of a tricky situation.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the language being confusing for somebody not kind of completely up to speed, like it is just a lot to read and digest to understand what your requirements are. So it's certainly not surprising that people may not dig into them completely. And it'd probably be helpful for organizations to have a checklist of like which ones can they actually comply with, so that people could just cross-reference and understand, like, I can't bid on this unless I go talk to somebody else and they verify that this one that's not in our pre-approved list we can do.
That's good advice. I kind of agree. And I think the other piece of advice I would give is every business development team should try to have a good relationship with like internal, like CMMC guys. Like if you have people on staff, GRC guys, there should be a little bit of like the GRC team should kind of be involved in the bidding process, because if it's just the BD people, these enterprise grade sales people that are, looking for work that makes sense for the company from a deliverables perspective, and they don't have any GRC background, there's a lot that could totally swept under the rug or slip through the cracks within that process, and then you dig yourself a hole. So no, I think your advice is really good. Like, hey, we all need to come together with everybody, all hands on deck, and figure out, okay, what can we actually bid on? And if it's not on this list, like you said, you can confirm with the team, maybe something got missed in that pre-approved list. or move on to the next RFP. Like, just move on.
Yeah, and I would go like kind of a step further. Like I have seen situations where those business development teams have just like committed the internal IT or other people to things without even confirming it, and end up with winning an award that you've got to deploy a bunch of things internally, and nobody had any idea until after, and it becomes
Yeah.
kind of a big blow up of like that's a ton of extra work on top of everything else that we're doing. And like we didn't magically just like get extra budget for the IT. So who's paying for this? Does that go against
Right.
the contract to run these systems, or like who thought that one out? And that has
Yeah.
led to some contentious moments of kind of who is going to be responsible for this,
I
because it
can
makes
imagine.
a lot of gray area of that. Or sometimes they do some research development things where someone's been on something and they just have to figure out after the fact how they're going to wedge these things into their existing system so that they can treat that CUI the same. But the things they're doing research on requires a bunch of extra stuff that nobody has thought through, and they've got
100%.
to hurry up and get it before the contract starts so they can start working on it.
Yeah. Well, I guess another question I had for you is, for KTL, is CMMC right now? I know you mentioned that you have other commercial clients, but is when it comes to GRC related stuff, like GRC as a service, that type of element of your guys' practice, is CMMC the only one that seems to have a lot of action right now, or are you guys focusing on other frameworks that might introduce new experiences beyond just the DoD regulatory stuff?
Yeah, I think CMMC is the big one. We've gone down the path of looking into the healthcare and some other pieces of can we take our same knowledge and capabilities into those sectors, and we just haven't seen the need with the current workload to expand out or kind of make it worthwhile. So I would say probably
Interesting.
related to the things we do at GRC type work, it is more or less with defense contractors or those that need CMMC related services.
That's interesting because most of the MSPs I talk to, they already have or are planning to have like healthcare involvement, because there's just so many organizations that have HIPAA requirements, and so they need people with know-how to help them make sure that they're at least got their IT stuff resolved. So you guys don't do really anything with like the healthcare industry right now?
We don't do anything as it relates to their compliance type deal. Like we have some customers that would have HIPAA requirements. They generally have another kind of consulting company that is doing compliance related activities for that. And we are
Gotcha.
working with them on configuring systems and anything else related to it. But yeah, we're not sitting there. Our consultants that do the compliance consulting are not trained in any of that at the moment.
Yeah.
And so we just don't have people that could walk in there and confidently tell them what is and is not allowed.
Gotcha. Are you guys ever called for other types of audits or assessments beyond CMC to sit on customers' assessments right now? Like, do you guys see that here and there?
We've been pulled in to help some customers with certain aspects of their like FedRAMP environments and kind of work with them on that, as well as their SOC audits. But it's not something we kind of like focus on.
Right.
But they may have specific things or running into issues of like, how do I accomplish this or meet this requirement? And we'll sit down with them and kind of go through kind of what do they have now from a capability standpoint, and what can the system do and not do, and what they should probably deploy to get out there. I mean, one of the big ones is some of the customers doing like FedRAMP authorizations through Azure Gov specifically, and they're trying to do just Azure accounts, like cloud only accounts, but then they have policies elsewhere that state certain things that just Azure can't do natively, and they're trying their hardest, and we just got to advise them, you're going to end up having to deploy Active Directory at some point to meet what you're trying to do. So,
which brings an on-prem or at least another operating system into scope.
Yeah.
Deal with.
So most of that's just advisement to kind of take our knowledge in the things that we are knowledgeable about and kind of help them meet those goals, or at least steer them in the right direction of what is the art of the possible, and then help them kind of achieve that.
Yeah, FedRAMP is no joke. We went through our FedRAMP moderate equivalency, 3PAO assessment, and developed our body of evidence and stuff like that. And that was no joke, dude.
No, that was yeah. I was looking at the amount of paperwork and things like that. Like one of the customers we were kind of working with, like how they can leverage Azure Gov and those things for their solution. Like they started with a team of like 1 or 2 people, and like I was looking at it going, I don't think that's enough. And by the end of the whole journey, they had like a team of 12, 15 kind of
working on
all of this. And like, that, I guess sounds about right. Like between
that sounds about right.
compliance folks and their security folks and the IT folks, like it
DevOps and
pretty quickly just to run just to run an app inside of Azure Gov. Like you're not hosting physical infrastructure, but there's still a fair number of people that have jobs to do.
Yeah. Oh, and just and this is something I want to ask you guys about how KTL handles this, but just the Conmon aspect of the continuous monitoring aspect of a FedRAMP package, and I'm sure your customers are like begging you all for help all the time with like even some of that stuff, right? Like gathering fresh versions of evidence and stuff like that. Like that's got to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, usually we're just at the front of their FedRAMP side, like architecture of kind of what they can do, but at some point it is all on the customer, and so they'll have things deployed and they've got a very specific thing they're trying to achieve, or they have an existing system and they want to kind of move it into a cloud environment and potentially figure out how they can re-architect this so they have to do less. And we'll work with them to figure out kind of what their system is doing and what components are and kind of how that relates. Pretty much your standard like IT cloud modernization process, just with people that have a kind of more understanding of what your requirements are, so they don't start recommending things that aren't going to work or going to put you in a bad spot once the 3PAO comes out and starts wanting to ask questions. And the same thing on the CMMC side. We've got customers we don't do managed services for. It's just pure consulting, licensing, and stuff. And they'll come to us kind of before they make any large changes, just as like a sanity check, or if they don't have like enterprise architects kind of in-house, but they can still do the work. They'll come to us and we'll sit down with them and kind of work on kind of that architecture plan and migration plan, and then they'll take that and go do it. And then if they run into issues or want us to take care of a certain aspect of it, we'll work alongside them in those kind of engagements to kind of get them and modernize their infrastructure.
Do you guys, you're coming from projects and ERP and doing IT as a managed element, and then you've got all this CMMC stuff and all this other GRC stuff that you're working on. Is the general sentiment of the company that you guys enjoy that, like, or is this more of there's a responsibility, there's a obligation to do it, so it's more of a this is something that we need to do, or is it something that you guys have found that you really enjoy as a company to work on?
I think the IT and compliance team have found they really enjoy it, on different sides of it. I mean, me personally, the documentation and those things like that is not where I want to be day in and day out. Our compliance team, they love it. That's great. So like that's why they chose those positions in career path, because that's what they enjoy to do. And then our IT team enjoys doing IT things. But we're all pretty kind of close in proximity to each other in the office, as well as the work we do, because a lot of what we're doing is compliance related, and compliance needs to understand what IT is doing. So we all work pretty hand in hand with the aspects that we enjoy doing. I think the compliance piece does make life easier for everybody on the KTL side, especially on the managed services side. And that's kind of one of the things as we bring on people from other managed service providers, just kind of have to distill a little bit. Like, you've got to have boundaries for what the customer's requesting, because the person's going to call in saying they can't do something and they're blocked or something else, but like that's what's supposed to happen. And if they want that change, there's a process for it. And that's not always a right now thing. There are people that have to approve it outside that person. And like that helps, I think, set boundaries and expectations with customers and internal teams, and actually make sure things are documented and progress correctly, so it doesn't end up kind of people making random changes all over the place and nobody has any documentation for it.
Yeah, that I thought about this too. I'm like, if there is any encouragement that I can give to other MSPs considering how they can help in this space, it'd be something along those lines. It's like you're worried about the overhead that you're going to take on by having to deal with policies and procedures and making sure you're not violating your customers' policies and having a CRM and stuff like that. But what you get from having all that is people not telling you they want random things or trying to do random things on their own and then getting blocked and you not coming into a chaotic nightmare. Right, because it
Yeah.
needs to be documented, it needs to be approved, it needs to be part of the approved software list. There's like several things, several safety nets that keep chaos from reigning. And I just, yeah, I kind of think that that's something people need to consider. It's like, hey, are you not tired of like just everything being so random that you can't keep track of it all? Like,
Yeah, I mean that's part of the kind of the roles and personnel pieces and everything else. Like people should not have local admin rights to their machine. Like, would it be nice if they did?
say it again. Say it
Maybe,
again,
yeah.
Andrew.
It'd certainly be nice for them. They could do what they want. They could download whatever the latest thing is from the internet and install it because Claude told them it's going to make it faster, it's going to fix their issue or whatever like AI thing they're using right now. And in some cases, the AI might be right, but that software again might have a cloud component that pushes data up to the cloud, and now that data they shouldn't have put there, the thing did what it wanted, made their life a lot easier, but now you've
Yep.
potentially violated some laws or other regulations, and someone's in trouble for it, and it wouldn't be me. I didn't do it. The person did it. So kind of walk them through, like, we got to put the boundaries in. Like, those frameworks and the government are not putting this stuff in place because things were going well and they were saying things they liked. Like, they want a little more kind of security on the stuff they're doing. And it helps everyone, I feel like. I mean, from my side, our IT teams understand like what's expected. If someone wants something new and there's no information on it, we have it documented as an app that they should have, and we don't have instructions on how it should be installed and configured, then that needs to go to compliance and loop them in. And people have an understanding of that process and understand, like, customers know, like, this is not going to be a same day thing or turnaround. Like, there's going to be a review of it. The person above you, whoever is marked as the system owner or whoever the system owner delegated these decisions to, is going to have to review this document. We send them to approve, and then we'll install it. And that might take a week depending on how complicated your software is and when the system owner can get back to us and everything else. So it helps slow things down so people don't make rash decisions, but also
Right.
ensures the proper people actually are making the decisions and not just somebody in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, I guess that begs the question for me about, I mean, KTL's onboarding like process, right? So like, say you have a customer that comes to you and they're like, we want you to do our managed services stuff, and but we have these, CMMC obligations. Do you guys have like an internal standard of like, if you're going to go with us, these are like the bare minimums that we expect from you, Mr. Customer? Like, I'm not talking just about CRM, right? A CRM having your customer responsibility matrix. I'm talking about like, you will not be local admins on your machines. If you're going to use our services, you will not be a local admin on your machine. Or if you're going to use our services, you will not have Kaspersky.
Yeah.
All these crazy things. Do you have stuff like that as like this is our conditions for doing the work?
Yeah, I think just from a scaling point, like, you cannot get to where you kind of want to be without having those kind of line in the sand. Like, we have policies that you have to accept because, like, we're not a super boutique thing to where we're putting 4 people or 2 people as IT and they only work for your company. And it's a risk from your standpoint if every customer is different and our people have to go back and check and they forget that, oh, that policy was for that customer and this policy is for this customer. That's a risk to you. It, from an efficiency standpoint, slows us down. So that means your costs are going to go up.
Right.
So we have like certain policies that, like, this is how we do things. This is what has to be accepted, or we're not going to be able to do what you want us to do. So those exist, and then we've got kind of standard like applications and hardware things that we have pre-documented and baselines for, and everything else that we try to push customers to, just to make everyone's life easier from both an assessment, compliance, and support and uptime. But that doesn't always work. I mean, each business has their own specific requirements, and they may need a Windows 8 machine sitting out in no man's land, or Windows 7, or whatever it might be. They may have just signed for their router or some other piece and force them to spend another $4,000 or $8,000, depending on their situation, on a router. Is their firewall might not be feasible at the moment. And so we'll work on those things, but there are certainly core components that are kind of take it or leave it type deal, just because it won't be feasible to kind of either scale KTL services to everybody, or kind of from our standpoint adds too much risk to both KTL and the customer.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting. So you guys provide actual hardware as part of your services for like companies who don't really have enterprise grade hardware but need it. Like it sounds like a Cisco Meraki type situation or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we resell Dell and other products. We're partners there. And so if a customer needs laptops or servers or networking equipment, we will kind of resell it to them. If they already have it and it's something we support anyway, then we'll just kind of take admin ownership of it and look at the configuration and see what needs to change and see if it matches our baseline. Depending how they're using the actual system, a lot of the times there are changes that we will make so it aligns with everything else we're doing, and it functions like our IT is expecting and is compliant. And then we have to figure out kind of what we cannot do, because there are certainly some policies or settings that get set that are going to blow up potentially their ERP system or manufacturing systems because they don't like certain things. And there are plenty of I would refer to as like legacy type systems that have the ERP system run from VB scripts off of a file server type deal. That,
oh boy,
from a security perspective, I think the world has agreed like those things are blocked by default. Like I don't think you can find a published baseline from a reputable vendor that says you should have that enabled. And so our default baselines obviously block that, and we have to roll things back. But during those onboardings where we kind of discover those things and figure it out, like you have this, so we can't enable these pieces, and start making those ad hoc documentations so people know why this is like that.
So what are the trickiest types of customers then to deal with? If you guys have some flexibility, it sounds like, what are the ones that take you guys the most overhead to get onboarded, to get set up, and to get in an operational? I'm assuming it's manufacturers, but maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, manufacturers, depending on what they've got going on, can be a little more intensive. That's just more of kind of an in-person type deal, because they will have network equipment, they will have servers on-prem, they might have their machines connected to the network. So it's difficult to fully kind of appreciate and understand what they have going on without somebody going out there and kind of reviewing it all and documenting how it's all connected and why it's connected and what they were doing for those pieces. I would say the trickiest customers, though, are those that have software developers or consultants that do some type of development, because they're the ones that will constantly request additional things, the processes for
local
that.
Admin.
Yeah,
I mean,
the processes
admin,
for
baby.
that are always different. I mean, the whole development part and mobile code and like what you're allowing in the system, a lot of these things are built on, let's just have this open ecosystem that all of our IDEs integrate with, and it's just a click of a button, and I've got some libraries and code that somebody wrote that I didn't review running on my machine with whatever permissions I have. But that's a whole area, I think, just is maturing itself on the defense side of requiring people to have SBOMs and other pieces. Right. And that is usually the trickiest, is like, how do we make a system and infrastructure that lets these people do their jobs while being compliant,
usable,
without making it totally inefficient for them. And depending on what they do and what system they're supporting, it can go a variety of directions. And then they're sometimes the same customers that you would say are on the cutting edge of things or startup type culture. And so they're trying to use things that like there's no documentation for, it's all brand new stuff that's come out. They're trying to use all the new things, and
Yeah.
keeping up with
Lean
that
and
is,
mean.
yeah, that, like Claude, we've got a lot of customers that want to use Claude and Anthropic things, and now you got the whole DOW marking them as a supply chain
As a
risk,
no-go.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so now we've got that to deal with, and they don't have a
Yeah. Yeah.
FedRAMP
Let me
model
ask you
people can
about
use
that.
right now.
Yeah. Let me ask you about, so you've mentioned Claude a couple times now. Not to try to transition to having an AI segment in our talk or anything, but hey, it came here. But I mean, how are you dealing with the Anthropic, kind of black mark there? What is, it sounds to me like, as long as, I'm just from a CMMC perspective, I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
sounds to me, as long as CUI is not going in there, which maybe some of the code being developed is CUI, so there's obviously a legitimate concern there as well. But I mean, what the government hasn't put it on, from my understanding, hasn't put it on the same level of, like, don't use this as like the Nokia phones and
Yeah,
the other things from the FAR 52204. Forget the specific number. I mean, unless I'm wrong, is that the case? Like, now that you've had to deal with them and you had to do the research, are they actually debarred from contractors using them?
I am not a lawyer on that one, so every time a customer's brought it up within that time period, I've referred them to their in-house counsel and let that person
Gotcha.
make the determination, because
I
that
probably
person
should get an
likely
answer to that.
is going to be the one that is going to have to defend this.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think we've seen a way for someone to use Claude. I don't know if they have a FedRAMP cloud that people can use. They've got the desktop app that you can filter folders, but when we did our review, there wasn't like an enterprise like level control, and so it was still on the user to make sure they didn't put the data in there. And then if it's going to actually read your file, like that content has to go to their server so their LLM can actually read it. And so there's a high likelihood in my mind that somebody is going to put a document that has CUI either intentionally because they don't care, or they just didn't know that they shouldn't have done it because they didn't read the organization's policies for it.
Right.
But I mean, it's growing. We've got a lot of customers that want to take advantage of it. Not specifically Claude, but just the AI components that they have available in the actual kind of Microsoft ecosystem. They're already in. Copilot just became available in GCC High.
Right.
The OpenAI components have been available in Azure Gov for a while now. And so you've been able to take advantage of at least,
Like Azure AI Factory and stuff like that.
yeah, in fact, AI Foundry, and that's up. So they've had
Foundry, yeah.
GPT 4.1 in there. I mean, it's super slow to get models into it, but you've got some capabilities you could use. And so we've seen that grow of customers wanting to do AI specific things. And I think from a company standpoint, we were in a pretty good spot to assist, because we have, again, kind of being all over the place within the Microsoft kind of world. We've got a Power Platform team that does kind of the dynamics and Power Platform, which is what Copilot kind of sits on top of. And so
Right.
they had all the kind of prerequisite skills to build out those kind of workflows and Copilot apps and everything else. And then our software development team being able to kind of utilize custom development where needed to kind of expand out these Copilot LLM capabilities through different MCP servers or other kind of integrations they may need. And then the compliance team to bring the hammer down and tell them you can't do any of those things, or whatever you just want to do. That brand new model you want to use, you can't use it yet. Sorry.
Oh, so I mean, I guess with the AI boom and stuff like that, are you guys have a lot of people internally that are training on it and learning it, and using it every day, kind of thing? Like, how is AI being used at KTL?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of people learning it across all different departments. And so the manufacturing side and customers on that have given us a lot of kind of hands-on work for people to kind of build out systems. And those customers are mainly on the commercial side, where we have all sorts of fun tools available. And so integrating their data from SQL Server into Power BI and Fabric, so that now the AI pieces of that can let them interact with their data in new and interesting ways, be it just conversationally or
Yeah.
building out different alerts and things. And that has been, from my standpoint, pretty cool to watch, because some of those things I was involved in from early on, like setting up some of the systems.
Manual.
Yeah, and like seeing that now, like the data can integrate with other things. They can just, instead of like, great, now I got to go to this like page and look at the manufacturing schedule. I can ask this thing like, hey, what's supposed to be produced this week? I've got this customer that needs to do X, Y, Z. Is there a way to fit it in and meet all the deadlines and let things kind of figure it out? Or just ask like general things about like customers and orders and stuff like that. Saves a lot of time. And from our perspective of a kind of implementation team, is kind of exciting because we get to kind of make new capabilities for the customers. And then the Power Platform folks building out Power Apps and Power Pages and things, so your customers can interact with the things they need a little more efficiently without having to bog down employees when they might not want to have to pick up the phone and call somebody. They just want to go to the page and get the answer. And then our development team and IT side. And so we see kind of internally what we're kind of putting into place are things to look at our ticketing system and other pieces to figure out kind of what are trends, what can we help kind of identify who should go where, or what tickets should go to what boards, and things that like took up people's time that we don't like think are high risk at the moment. Like if a ticket gets miscategorized on the wrong board, that is a problem, but it doesn't cause a confidentiality issue or a kind of security problem. It's just an inefficiency problem, because now like maybe an ERP person is going to look at this ticket and send it to the IT board. And then I think the Power Platform and our business application teams probably have a whole laundry list of things that they've been kind of working on with customers and internally to build out various capabilities.
Yeah. I mean, we use it a lot for like marketing and stuff like that, or personal, not personal like me at home, but individual people doing research and stuff like that. And I don't know how much you guys have played around with it, but we've got a couple AI things in the tool now that are helping people do like their self-assessments and write their implementation statements and stuff like that. So I'm just interested to see like what everybody else is using AI for,
Yeah, I would say the image recognition thing you guys have, that I thought when that showed up in our tenant was pretty awesome. The fact that I could upload an evidence like image and it would save me a ton of clicks by looking at it and figuring out this probably applies to these controls.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's 100% right all the time, but like the amount of like clicks to connect things, like it saved me a ton of time. I just go on the list and say, yep, you're right. No, you're wrong. Right. Yep. And then we're done.
Yeah. That's what we're saying for everything AI is, whether it's in the tool or not. It's like, remember, you are still a critical part of the process here. You as a human being, review this, don't just accept it. But yeah, when our guy on our team who was heavily involved in like not the coding, but like the development of the features, his name's Roberto. You might have met Roberto, I'm not sure. Roberto Quinones. He showed us when he was demoing Alfie, which is the name of that tool, Evidence Analyzer and Alfie, for the first time. He uploaded a picture when we got to the, I think it was 310.1 requirement or 310.2, I can't remember which one, but the one that talks about having to protect your supporting infrastructure and your physical facilities. He uploaded a picture of his closet, with Ethernet cables just dangling from the ceiling or something like that, and then he uploaded it side by side with like a secure conduit where the supporting infrastructure, those electrical and Ethernet cables they're in a locked box and they're secure, and it's metal, it's going across the ceiling, it's nice and neat. But one of them, the one with his closet, was like, that doesn't look good. that looks kind of exposed. And then on the other one, it was like, yeah, that looks like you're protecting your supporting infrastructure within your means. So yeah, it did it. We were very impressed.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty wild. I'm still in awe of like what it could actually do. I haven't gone so far just uploading random images at this point to see if I could trip it up or if it's just doing wild stuff. But
yeah, we're iterating on it for sure. Yeah. But it's definitely got some powerful capabilities.
I tell people internally, like, so back to the AI thing, like you may use AI for something, but like when you go to send an email or upload something or recommend something, like that's your name on it. So
Right.
calling back of everything blew up because you recommended that I delete the C drive, like you can't say AI said to do it. Like that's you.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. It's yeah. I think our founder's position is AI is meant to speed you up, but not replace you. You can't. You're still in charge of what ends up going out from AI. So I think we have to have that position, or I think there was a study the other day. I don't know if it was MIT or something, but it really can cause irreversible like cognitive damage if
you do
you
nothing.
if you do nothing. You can have like you could be in trouble.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
still take charge. Use it to make you faster, but still take charge.
I can see it happening. If nobody actually does any thinking as part of their job, and this thing's just kind of telling them to do something and they're doing it, like they'll have no idea the why. And I think you see that in like IT as well, like Stack Overflow and everything else. Like they're just typing stuff in Google, go Stack Overflow, it tells you to do X, Y, Z, blah blah blah, and you go do it. It's fixed. You have no idea like why it's fixed or what was broken or
Mm,
what was going on. And the same thing with AI, like it can do a lot. And some of the
yeah,
stuff I play around with it is relatively good. And sometimes it recommends something you probably shouldn't do. Very
yeah,
well does on Stack Overflow, and people have little up and down arrows. They can rank things and tell people they're wrong type
right.
deal. So I don't think a whole lot has changed too much other than we have now a different source that is telling us the answer instead of what is easily identifiable as a random stranger on the internet telling you something.
Yeah, I
Which
mean you
it still might be that random stranger. They may have used Stack Overflow as part of their training model, and that's where I got the answer from. Who knows?
that is a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think as long as people stay curious and want to know why this is the right answer, use it to help you get to the right answer, but figure out why before you start doing crap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's definitely not going away. Even on the defense side, we're seeing a lot of customers wanting to utilize it for internal things as well as various projects on the kind of
yep,
federal government side wanting to implement it. And so it's going to explode even more in kind of what I'm seeing. I think the only thing that can maybe throw a wrench in it is if prices for these actual messages or LLM compute pieces start skyrocketing and people have to
yeah.
think about it. I mean, right now it's relatively
RAM
cheap.
prices.
Yeah. So like use it, I guess. And then if it gets too expensive and revalue what it's actually doing for you and figure out if you want to continue using it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that kind of covers what I was curious about from AI. But do you see other because I know you guys are heavily involved in cloud and infrastructure, like cloud and infrastructure. Um, are there any big developments that you're excited for on the cloud and infrastructure side aside from AI? Any new features or tools coming out that you guys are kind of anticipating, whether it's Microsoft or not?
Um, It's going to be Microsoft because that's kind of where I live most of my day
Right.
there. But there's two components Microsoft has kind of rolling out that I think are going to be relatively large. One of them is the Microsoft 365 local. And so we have a lot of interest and leads and customers that are foreign entities that do some work or subcontract, and they have thrown CMMC things at them and they don't know what to do because most of the FedRAMP environments you have to have a U.S. entity to buy into it, including GCC High. And so
Mm,
that component, I think, them being able to just buy an Azure local server and drop it into their office or wherever they want and have maybe a similar functionality is going to be pretty useful in those situations. The weird downside, and I'm sure it's some technical piece, but the Microsoft 365 local is advertised as having Skype for Business instead of Teams. So that
what?
thing, yeah, is not dying, which is wild. I
What?
thought it was gone for good, and then they came back.
I did too. I hadn't heard
Yeah,
Skype for business in a
I'm
year and a
hoping
half.
something changes and they come up with a way to make Teams work on prem on that instance, but the documentation said Skype for Business. The other piece
What?
that was introduced and is in private preview right now is Azure Virtual Desktop Hybrid. And
Okay.
so historically, if you wanted to use Azure Virtual Desktop on-prem, you needed Azure Local. That's a very expensive piece of hardware, and the vendors themselves selling these things are marking it up because it has the Azure Local name, and the actual requirements to run Azure Local, like the hardware, has pretty high requirements. So it's
Mm.
expensive. I haven't really done an Azure Local implementation that wasn't in kind of like the mid six figures at this point just for the hardware. So I don't know what people's options are for a cheaper option for it. But what we're seeing right now on the Azure Gov side for our defense contractor customers, like some of them are doing engineering work and they want to segment it off because they do it infrequently. But GPU machines aren't easy to come by in Azure Gov at the moment. And it's been like that for a while. So this would let them just take pretty much any server they can Azure Arc and roll, have that connected to their Azure Gov environment, deploy Azure Virtual Desktop onto that server, take advantage of local GPUs, which would also help their latency because not all of these customers have great internet connectivity and not all of them are in locations close to an Azure data center. And so now they've got what is probably a better experience for them specifically because the VDI machines are running in the same office. They can get to it. The process is probably a little easier and cheaper, and they can avoid capacity issues that are currently ongoing. I mean, they're probably still going to deal with GPU prices and the way they are, but it gives an avenue for some of these customers that don't want to kind of rely on the cloud because of various infrastructure issues. And so that, I think, in my mind, is going to be pretty good. And the other one, because we are a couple people in our office are Mac users, that new Mac book, that $500 one, if that is somewhat performant, I imagine that one is going to take off and we'll have a lot more Mac specific Intune configurations and to learn how to support Macs better.
Yeah, I was going to say, it is very, very, very rare for me to see a contractor have the app enrollment set up and the Apple enrollment set up and then have Intune policies for MacBooks. It's very rare.
Originally, like the support for it was not super great. Like everything was bash scripts to get things configured and whatnot. So like the recommendation was like, if you don't know how to write all these things, you're probably better off like using Intune for all these things than integrating a Apple specific MDM tool for these specific components because it's going to be probably a lot harder for you to kind of work. But it's gotten better. Things are progressing. I imagine it's going to get better as time goes on, especially if the new MacBook piece kind of picks up steam and has a large adoption. But I mean, like $500, $600 if it uses Word correctly in the web browser and everything else, it's performant. Like there's a huge segment that would use it. I think I just bought Windows laptops for our sales team and spent $1,000. So would that work for them? Probably.
Yeah, you can't go to really Dell Refurbished and get like a solid Dell machine for that anymore, really. I mean, a good one.
Yeah. So that'd be my non-Microsoft thing that I think is exciting, and we'll see what happens. And force.
I wonder. I mean, do you think you're gonna have a lot of customers that go that route? So you guys are just mentally preparing for that?
I am mentally preparing myself. I've had internally people requesting MacBooks and things like that, and I've always told them no because there was no major reason for our IT team not to understand yet another system because it doesn't function all that like a Windows machine. So it's something completely different. But I mean, things change, the world evolves. You know, if the market picks up and it's a better product than the Dell machine or HP machine, then sure, I can see that going. I can see our internal adoption of it picking up and some people using it because everyone's a business. If it's cheaper and gets the same result, why not?
Why not? That's a good point. What do you think? Change topics. What do you think is the biggest problem that you're seeing from customers as they're trying to prepare for all the CMMC stuff? You had to pick one thing that's always feels like a hurdle or a hiccup that you guys are having to overcome with them. What would that be?
I think it's what they don't know is the biggest problem because like we'll come into situations and they've got tools or other things that they've just purchased and they've got a year commitment or 3-year commitment or some other piece, and we have to unfortunately tell them that like, you can't use this There's no world where this is allowed to be used. A prime example is some like the Kaseya products, like the Datto piece and things like that. Like,
Yes. Oh my
great.
god.
Like this seems like a pretty great product. It'll do what it needs to do, but in your specific use case, you can't have your data going up there. So like
Your
you're
backups for
going to
you.
have to just drop it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have some other system that doesn't have CUI that's outside the boundary that you can kind of utilize it for. So it's not a complete waste of money. But those are kind of the big issues there. Or on like the firewall side, the customer will just kind of do a network refresh and realize that, hey, you didn't buy the model that actually matched on the FIP certificate. So you probably need to replace these, or you can't do deep packet inspection and lose out on some of the security features you paid for. So that's I think the biggest one, because we have to be the bad guys, and that's not always super fun. And sometimes like they just don't have the budget to then go spend the exact same amount of money on new components, and you kind of have to figure out a good solution that doesn't either degrade security or just openly violate regulations.
Yeah. We've had a couple customers back when we were doing a lot of heavy consulting, like for OSCs. We don't do as much anymore, but because we're working with partners like you guys. But back when we were doing that, we had a couple that, went with what felt like was the cheapest or felt,
Mm-hmm.
gave them recommendations, and they end up spending more money in the end than if they had just done the recommendation up front, for all the time it took to replace. And yeah, I,
Yeah.
I I agree with you. I feel like if anybody's listening to people who have been in this for any period of time that with some credible background in it, it's probably best just to you're going to end up spending more money anyway if you don't stop. If
Yeah.
you don't listen.
Most of the time, like it's not at their own fault, their own. Like they may have had a previous MSP, like that's what they recommended and did, and the
Right.
MSP got that NIST 171 sheet and was going down it and did not even think about FedRAMP requirements because that wasn't on their
Right.
radar. It's just like the lack of knowledge on certain aspects. Like that's a giant kind of issue.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'd walk in and go down like great from like a normal cybersecurity stance. Like you're doing everything that appears to be correct. It's just that all these things you're doing that otherwise would be great, you can't do XYZ, you can't use that service, you've also got to enable these things, and you don't have this documented, even though you're doing it. Just kind of write a policy with what you're doing. And those are the big ones there, is just kind of informing customers like what is the level of requirements here that you have to do. It's not just kind of like throwing tools at things.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to throw money at something, throw it at the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's always not cheap. I mean, some of the FedRAMP things definitely use that name to increase the price. Some of them wildly do not. I use Cisco Duo as an example. Like that's I think the only one I can think off the top of my head that it's the same price in both commercial and FedRAMP type thing. And so like why? I don't know. Like yes, there are some features that they don't have, like telephony, but you probably wouldn't use that anyway.
Yeah. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys also do reseller work for, right? You guys sell licenses for the Microsoft tenants. You're a CSP. Um, Commercial and GCC have similar pricing for licenses. It's not until you get to GCC High, right, that it goes up exponentially, or is it a little bit? I can't remember.
The GCC ones are a little bit more expensive. I wouldn't say
Okay.
nearly as much as going from a jump of commercial to GCC High.
Right.
It is a lot more expensive for the GCC High licenses. Your capabilities of like different license types aren't there. So originally it was just enterprise SKUs.
Right.
Early this year they introduced business premium, but like there isn't business basic or any stuff like that. So it's pretty select SKUs and kind of what Microsoft thought would be the minimum requirements for compliance, and they didn't add anything extra that didn't need to be there. And that goes for other things as well. Like there's Windows 365 in there, but there's only the enterprise version that's available in there, and there's no GPU versions in there. So you kind of have to be aware of what's in there before you start trying to figure out what you're going to migrate to.
Yeah. That's a good point. For the longest time, yeah, we were just telling everybody, okay, if you're going to be in GCCI, just prepare to be paying like $100 a person, essentially,
Yep.
whatever it is. Which again, obviously, pricing changes. Don't take that as a quote of an actual price. They changed, but yeah, that it was like it went from them being on Office 365 E3 licenses or something that they're paying like what $12 a month or something like that for people, all the way up to 57, or not 57, like 97 or something like that for the G5. It was a big
Yeah,
change.
I mean, to get all the features that you would need if you're trying to keep it just in the Microsoft realm, you'd be up there on the E3 with E5 security and compliance, or just biting the bullet and going full E5 if you wanted kind of some of those extra features
Right.
there. Or now they have business premium with business security and purview. I forget the.
Yeah, I think the best arrangement now for cost effectiveness is Gov Business Premium plus G5 security and compliance. I think that's the SKU.
Yeah, and that was a whole thing itself. I mean, you could not add the G5 things like they originally said you could. So now there's a special SKU called BP Security and BP Purview, or BP Defender and BP Purview.
Oh my
So they had to
goodness.
make a special. It doesn't change much. The pricing, all those things about the same, but it's specific.
It's still more cost effective than just going straight G5, correct?
100%. Yeah, if you're less than like that 500 seat count type thing, then it is a lot more cost effective. There are some things like you wouldn't get that you would otherwise have. I don't think like Windows Enterprise is included with Business Premium. So some of the things that you would potentially want controlling the Windows Store and things like that, you can't do it. And it brings up an interesting kind of potential issue because originally people would buy M365, E3 or E5 licenses, which has everything you need for the Windows 365 SKU that's sold, but Business Premium doesn't have Windows Enterprise, and now you got to add on extra stuff. So it's caused a little bit more complicated license depending on what people's end goals are.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I back in the day when we were doing a lot of that consulting and having to do a lot of those like price matrices to show them what you're getting as compared to what you're paying, it always came out. It's like, guys, if you want to nickel and dime this, but you want all these things, you want Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, you want, the licensing for Windows so that you have enterprise for all these, Dell refers that come with Pro or something like that you want to step them up, which is a nightmare, by the way. Everybody should know that. Windows licensing is a nightmare, especially if they're like OEM key licenses trying to. Oh my gosh, let me not go there. But like, it was always like, okay, you may save a couple dollars by the end of this, but the headache and having 4 or 5 different SKUs that you're managing in your tenant, just go with G5. Just do it.
Yeah, part of it as well is like the commitment that you have to navigate. So there are annual commitments. And so if you buy the wrong thing, maybe it has a step up SKU, maybe it doesn't, and you have to deal with that. It's really locking in like what capabilities you ultimately want and potentially what capabilities do you want in the next 3 or 4 months so you can account for it. And we've had situations where like a customer is just trying to kind of get certain aspects set up, and so they just won't buy certain features out of the gate because it's going to sit there for 3 or 4 months, 6 months maybe, because their teams aren't even going to get to it to configure it. And we see that happen a lot, like the Purview side. Like they're so focused on getting Intune and Defender and all that stuff rolled out and going that like there's nobody left in their team. To even focus on it, train users on it, write the documentation. So that's going to be a 6 month down the road or a year down the road, depending how complicated their environment is. And so you tailor licenses to kind of fit what you're doing now and what you actually require.
Yeah, it's interesting. It sounds like it's not really changed with the complexity of licensing.
No, the complexity is there. Each business has their own kind of thing that they do and what people require, and so you kind of have to understand what they actually need. And the manufacturing, that's where that gets complicated because the people on the line, they could get F3 licenses, but they also need the Windows apps. So now let's get them those apps there. Then someone says, oh, now they also want to be able to use the Outlook desktop app. Well, great. The F3 license isn't going to work for that because it's not allowed. So
it's online only.
You've got to upgrade a SKU there. So there's considerable work when you're going through that process to kind of actually determine someone's role and what's required for it and make sure all that's correct so you don't end up in an overspend situation because you had to buy extra licenses for somebody.
Right. Yeah. It's tricky. I just encourage people to get with somebody who knows Microsoft licensing kind of like the back of their hand, because if you're not, you're going to end up spending more money and it's going to
Yeah.
be more headache. That's what my experience has been.
Yeah, I would agree. And we've definitely come into situations where somebody bought a wild mix of licenses thinking like it did a certain thing and it did not do it. And they would have been better off after all the extra pieces were added, just
Yeah.
buying the massive bundle. And would it save the money depending everything they added? Sure. I mean, once you start adding Power BI and Teams
Yep.
Phone and all those extra things, like you're going to pay more. And the
Yep.
same thing when you get down like the business premium ones, which kind of brought up, like those, if you even try to a la carte any of those components, like you are just going to blow past the cost of those business premium SKUs. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a no-brainer in most situations just to pull the trigger and kind of get deployed and have pretty much everything you need for CMMC
Yeah.
from a kind of Microsoft technical side of it.
Yeah. Agreed. How's David and Paige and Luke? How are they doing? Not seen them in a while.
David is busy, so he's added more people to his team. That was one of the things when we became a 3P or C3PO. I told him that that's on him. So
Nice.
we've got enough going on in the IT and consulting and deployments, all that stuff. And the C3PO aspect will be its own kind of division company to run type deal, like the amount of effort that takes. So he oversees now all of those specific things, and the compliance team has kind of gone from being directly under my purview and IT side to kind of its own department that reports to the president, Tim. And that has seen a lot of work because they went from doing a lot of consulting for the IT managed services piece to now having assessments being scheduled and other kind of consulting things only for compliance for customers. And so they're seeing a lot of work, a lot of growth there that's keeping them extremely busy. And then David does do, what do you call it, presentations as well at conferences.
Yep.
So he is doing a whole lot that I'm sure you'll see him at a conference every once in a while. He still goes to all those.
Yeah, I saw Paige also got promoted to compliance manager. Was that what the role was?
Yes.
She moved
Yeah.
up the
So
teams. That's good. It's really cool to see that for her.
yeah, so she has been pretty awesome when she came on board. She kind of went through kind of those processes to get her CCP and then CCA kind of
I
faster
remember.
than I was expecting. It seems like a lot of effort and work, but she buckled down and did all the training, got everything done, and then has been really good at following up and getting all the documentation going and reviewing everything and calling things out that don't look right and making people fix it as kind of they're supposed to be doing. So
Nice.
it's good to see kind of David kind of recognize that and promote her for it.
Yeah. And then I asked about Luke because we spent a lot of time with Luke. We love Luke. How's he doing?
He's good. He's on the partner side, so you probably should spend more time with him. He has been traveling a good bit. I was talking with him yesterday via Teams. He's at a manufacturing conference somewhere, and they were sending me pictures of some of the booths and the wild stuff that they have there. I think depending where you guys are at, we can probably schedule kind of a lunch or dinner, get that kind of team back together, and one can hang out if you're in the Nova area at all. But yeah, he's staying pretty busy. The kind of areas where KTL does not excel, he's kind of worked pretty hard and kind of aligned us with pretty good partners. You guys, we kind of recently started working with Radical after he kind of talked with them because we don't have a SOC. So if a customer needs a 24/7 SOC type deal, yeah, that's kind of what we would pull in. And there's some others that he's kind of been working with to kind of expand out our capabilities, be it custom integrations to certain things. And I think his focus at the moment is kind of helping our commercial sales grow and do more over there with our ERP teams.
That's awesome. Yeah, we love those guys. We love you guys. We really appreciate the partnership. Any final words of wisdom from you, Andrew, to our listeners, whether they're OSCs or other MSPs trying to just figure out how to do this thing?
I would probably suggest people get a GRC tool earlier than later. You could certainly go down the path with Excel and everything else, and then at some point you're probably going to realize that I'd be better off with it, and then you're going to spend a considerable amount of time trying to map everything and then figure out how they work. So that'd be the kind of one there, and then that, like, we rely heavily on IntelliGRC during the assessment of, here is kind of the POAMs, and here's how we did our annual review. Here are the audit logs showing that Paige looked at this and she made a comment and IT had to go fix it because she said it wasn't good enough or didn't meet the intent. And so here's the change ticket associated with that whole fact. And so we've got kind of the whole process built into it. So as you're doing your own assessment and getting your environment configured, like the GRC tool is part of that process and holds some of that evidence that you would show. And then, like most applications, you've got to learn it. So it's better to get it figured out prior to dumping a bunch of data in it and then having to clean it up. So if you're learning it as you go, and you're just, once you realize, oh, you're doing that wrong, it's easy to go back and fix a little bit of data than all of your data. So that'd be the big one there. I think from our standpoint, that's something we figured out not as soon as I probably wanted us to, that we should get that tool into the mix as soon as possible. Because like, we have processes, we do stuff, we deploy it, we know what needs to be done. And so in our minds, like, we don't need this yet. We'll pull it in later. But then, like, as you kind of get more into it, you realize like that is what we're going to reference a lot. So just pull it in. People can do it, even if you're just dumping in kind of what you're doing now and then having someone go through it. So that'd be a big one there. And then kind of picking the right team to assist you. What we have seen a good bit, and based on relationships with other kind of C3POs and other kind of companies that do the same thing, I'm seeing a lot of, there will be other companies, your peers and that stuff, going to C3POs saying they are ready for an assessment. They have another provider, and it's just the C3PO just tells them it's not going to work. Like, you're not ready. What you've given me, they are telling you it's good enough. It's not good enough. We're not going to take on your assessment. And so what usually happens in that one is either they like the MSP or consultant they're working with and give them another shot, or they thought they were going to be able to get an assessment done in 3 months, and the C3PO is telling them no, and they fire them, and the C3PO ends up giving additional recommendations for other companies they should go talk to. And we see a bit of leads on that front of, here we're at, and then we come in and kind of clean up. So kind of getting that GRC tool in there, if you had it and paid attention to it, you'd see what the other provider or consultants or MSPs are doing and have some oversight in what's happening and be able to kind of raise a red flag when the tool is telling you things don't look right.
Well, I appreciate those kind words about Intelli, and we agree. You guys are definitely one of the people that we send people to. So awesome. How can people get up with you personally in case they have questions or, you know, just want to connect? And then how can they kind of contact KTL if they have questions or wanting to get more information about what you guys can do for them?
Yeah, so if it's IT specific things, so people can reach out to me. I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm also wandering around the CUI Discord as well. It's a high probability if you put a question in there, I may be the one that answers it if it is something I know about. But you can also kind of shoot me an email at allay@ktlsolutions.com. And then if you are kind of wanting something more general, on our website at ktlsolutions.com, there is a contact form where you can pretty much just put in whatever you've got going on. If you've got some special use case that you want to discuss, or just a general question of how can KTL help me meet our goals, all of that gets routed to our kind of account executive sales team, and they'll figure out who at KTL with the kind of various departments needs to be in a call to discuss it, which very well could be 3 different members to figure out, and what might span 3 different kind of topics of everything you need. So they'd be the best ones to figure out who can provide that expertise, be it IT, ERP, CRM, or software developers.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, I thought this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on. And I guess everybody listening, look out for the next one.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yep. See you later.
Bye.